Seeing her flinch, he threw the plaited grass on the ground, taking her hands. "I'm sorry. That was unworthy and unfair." She snatched her hands away. "You can't have it every way, Guy." "I know, but to marry on the off chance that my marriage might allow me to do some more good seems wrong to me. Besides, the real issue remains what it has been from the beginning. I know what I ought to do. I know which direction my duty lies. But the more I try to imagine taking that vital step, the more wrong it feels." "You can't have thought so when you came here, or you wouldn't have come." "I thought I could do it. Then I met you and—" "No!" Esme jumped up from the bench. "I am completely irrelevant. You are struggling to come to terms with a momentous decision. You are torn and understandably uncertain, and I have been a sounding board and a distraction, that's all." "That's rubbish. You are not simply a distraction. That photograph you took of me shows that you understand me so much better than anyone, even my brother." "Perhaps even better than you do Guy. I'm much older than you." 3 years. 4. You envy me, my vocation, my independence. I know you do, and that has made you view your own situation in a different light, but the two do not compare. Marriage could be a stepping stone for you, a door opening all sorts of possibilities. Except the possibility of marrying a woman I love. You haven't even met Lord Armstrong's niece yet. For all you know, she might be your ideal woman. I don't want an ideal woman. I don't want perfection. I can't imagine anything more boring. I want a woman with a mind of her own. A woman with the spirit to challenge me. A woman who sees me, Esme, as you do. I have never met anyone like you. I wish you would not say such things. Because they were precisely what she would have dreamed of hearing when she was younger and naive and romantic, because she had been romantic before life and marriage made a realist of her. I say them because they are true. When I am doing my duty, playing my part, you see, that's it, Esme. I'm acting. But with you, I can be myself. You are struggling to fit in, that's all. The people you are mixing with are some of the most influential and powerful in the land. What you're feeling for me, what you think you are feeling for me, it's a product of the situation. She responded, desperately needing to convince herself as much as he. For once again, his words had resonated, and she dare not let them. We are both outsiders, as you said, and there is the added complication of a physical attraction. It's more than physical. It's not Guy. She knew as she spoke that she was lying, and that despite all her protestations, the pair of them were in very deep water. If she did not put a halt to the matter, they would very likely drown. Listen to me, Esme said in a very different tone. We have only known each other a few days. When this party breaks up, our paths are unlikely to cross again. You have never met anyone like me before, because I am a woman determined to make her own way in a man's world, and that gives me novelty value. But that's all. Is that how you see me? A novel way of passing the time? I should not be passing the time with you at all. I'm sorry, Guy, Esme said, her heart heavy, but her resolve now solid. We can't be alone together again. What I'm feeling is neither temporary nor a product of the situation, as you put it. What I feel is so real. That is how all infatuations feel until they pass. She had meant to anger him with her flippant tone, but Guy smiled sardonically, shaking his head. Who are you trying to convince, Esme? Both of us. He reached for her hand again, but stopped himself. Will you tell me why, honestly? Because this isn't real, Guy. A lump rose in her throat. Anyone seeing us together like this will guess what is going on. If we are caught, I will be dismissed. Everything I have worked so hard for over the last 4 years will be destroyed, for my success depends as much on my reputation for discretion as my skill with the camera. It would ruin me, and it would ruin you too. There would be a terrible scandal, and you would ruin your chance of making this extremely advantageous match that I am becoming convinced I don't want to make. Guy frowned heavily. I don't want to ruin you. That's the very last thing I want. Tears smarted in her eyes. Then you must stay away from me, please. Guy stared at her for a long moment, and she willed herself to remain firm. Whatever he saw in her expression convinced him. Very well. He left without looking back, leaving the garden gate, swinging back and forth, mirroring her own horribly conflicted emotions. Saturday, 7th of June, 1862. The grand ball was to be held this evening, a glittering occasion which would be attended by over 100 invited guests in addition to the resident house party. Esme had wanted to record some of the preparations on camera, but since it required her subjects to cease their work while she set up and timed the exposure, she had not been particularly successful. Lady Armstrong's suggestion that she set up in the still room where she was overseeing the flowers being arranged was a welcome surprise. Though that will require you to take yet another photograph of me, I'm afraid, her ladyship said while Esme set up her camera. Would it be possible not to show my face? I am sick of the sight of it, as you must be. Why don't you sit at the table at an angle with your head turned away, as if you are speaking to someone at the door? Then I can focus on your silhouette against the backdrop of the flowers and the ladies arranging them. Esme demonstrated the position, knowing that Lady Armstrong did not like to be touched. Like that. Yes, perfect. Do you think you can hold that pose? Easily. Are you pleased with the photographs you have taken so far this week? I think so, but the important question is whether or not you will like them. I know I will. You have an eye for quirky detail that never fails to make me smile. I always look afresh at a person after I have seen one of your images. The acid test, though, is, Lady Armstrong said with a faint sigh, whether my lord will approve. If he does, it could lead to a number of new commissions for you. I appreciate that, my lady. Please, you know I prefer you to call me Mercy when we are alone. Will he approve? I took several photographs at each location. I believe I have managed to reflect his lordship's vision of how he wishes posterity to view his house party in some of them. Mercy gave a most unladylike snort of laughter at this, immediately apologizing for the slight movement of her shoulders. May I have a set of the, what do you call them, the real photographs for my own entertainment? Of course. Lady Armstrong Mercy, I must thank you most sincerely for this opportunity. Given your husband could send a great deal of business my way, and don't thank me, for I am aware that it will be a mixed blessing, Mercy interrupted. Taking the kind of photographs my husband and his coterie wish to see must be quite tedious for someone with your flair and talent. You are an artist. You should not have to waste your talent on men like my husband. Men like your husband pay my bills. A circumstance that had begun to chafe even more in the days since she had last spoken to Guy, who thought the same thing. How to find a more satisfying balance with her work was something Esme had resolved to do when she was finished here. If she could succeed, it might even compensate for the loss of the man who had suggested it. The man she had told herself only an hour ago she must stop obsessively thinking about. Mercy, Her hands, hidden from view of the camera, could be heard rustling some of the greenery in front of her. I have confided a great deal in you over the years while you have been studying me through your lens. You know that I would never— Of course not. I trust you implicitly, and you may trust me too, Esme. I have been making a study of you these last few days as if I was looking at you through the lens. I think you are in love with Mr. Minard, or if not quite in love, in danger of falling. Damn! Esme emerged from under the hood. Excuse my language, I've spoiled the exposure. Never mind, posterity can most certainly do without another image of me. Won't you sit down here? I'd like to talk to you. I haven't even spoken to Guy Mr. Minard since last Monday, Esme said, taking the seat indicated very reluctantly. If you are thinking to warn me off, not at all. Mercy had been shredding the leaves from a long fern. It lay completely stripped on her lap. She discarded it and began the process with another. You have both been at great pains to avoid meeting each other's eyes, but when you think yourself unobserved, there is an expression on your face that is quite unmistakable, and on his, the same. Esme tried to cool her burning cheeks with the backs of her hands. I know it's wrong, and he does too. We have no intentions, the scandal, you have been so good to me, and I would not dream, not that it's gone that far. I really couldn't care less about the scandal from my own perspective. I want to know if there is anything I can do to help you. There are very few people that I care about, Mercy said diffidently. And it seems to me that those I care most deeply for are those I can do the least to help. My sister, Prudence, for example, who, as you know, is forced to wear a veil in public because of her disfigurement, I wish. But I can't help Prue. You are already doing a great deal to help me, with commissions you would rather not take. With commissions that give me my independence, which matters to you a great deal. I can understand that. Was your marriage miserable? You didn't have any children. No. Knowing how much the subject mattered to Mercy, Esme chose her words extremely carefully. My husband was never particularly— The intimate side of marriage did not particularly— He wasn't very amorous. Her face was flaming. Mercy's cheeks, too, were tinged with color. You mean he did not— that you and he did not share a bed? Not often. And when we did, he took measures to avoid conception. Esme's voice was no more than a whisper. I spent most of the time wishing for it to be over, to be honest. It never gave me any pleasure. Pleasure? Mercy asked, her fine brows rising in astonishment. Did you expect it to— I assumed that it was. Well, we are told, aren't we, that it is only men who enjoy such things. But I have since discovered that, in short, I don't believe that is true. What on earth do you mean Mr. Minard has actually— No, I swear I told you matters had not gone so far as that. Good heavens! Esme, are you telling me that you wish they had— Wished, longed, yearned even now, was the honest answer. Yes, Esme replied simply. Are you saying that you are in love with Guy Minard? You do understand why he is a guest at this party, don't you? He has told you. Yes, he told me the first time we met. I'm under no illusion. I'm not in love with him, Esme said. Not yet. Oh dear heavens, not yet. But you have a passion for him. I don't know how to describe it. He makes me feel so young and alive. He reminds me of all the hopes and ambitions I once had of changing the world with my photographs, of making the world see that a camera is every bit as powerful as a paintbrush in telling a picture. He arouses a passion for more than art in you, though. Yes, he does. Esme replied stiffly, brought back down to earth by her hostess's tone. And when I'm with him, it is difficult to resist. But I have resisted Lady Armstrong. Her return to the formal means of address made Mercy flinch. I'm not disapproving. I am merely... It won't surprise you when I tell you that I have no experience of such feelings. Do you think it is my lack of passion, Esme, that has kept me childless? Not at all. She caught Mercy's hand in hers, squeezing it tight. Oh no, I am sure it has nothing to do with that. I thought not. The hand was gently withdrawn. One gets rather desperate in the middle of the night sometimes and clutches at straws, you see. Do you regret not having a child, Esme? I was very young when I married and thought only of my work. We barely scraped a living, my husband and I, and he was so much older than me. He several times told me that he believed himself too old to become a father. But you are only just 30 now. Far too old, Esme was upon the point of saying, then recalled that Mercy was 5 years her senior. Since I have no intentions of getting married again, the question doesn't arise. You are quite certain of that. A great deal less certain than she was before she met Guy. Esme was forced to admit to herself. But there was a limit to what she would say, even to Mercy. When I was married, despite the fact that I had a better business head and a clearer artistic eye, I had to defer to my husband's wishes and decisions. The truth was, I married him because he offered me protection, a roof over my head, and the opportunity to train as his assistant. I never forgot the obligation I owed to him for all of those, but once I had outgrown him, marriage was suffocating. I have no need to look to anyone to provide me with a roof over my head or to put food on the table now, nor would she ever do as Mercy had and marry in order to have a child. Which left only one reason, Guy's reason. Love. Esme's mind skidded away from this dangerous path. She could not love Guy. It would be madness to love Guy. So the answer to your question, she said with as much firmness as she could muster, is that, yes, I am quite certain. Gloomily, she rose and set about preparing another plate for her camera. The remaining few days of the house party were going to be an ordeal. The ballroom of Killellan Manor was packed. Candles blazed from 2 huge chandeliers, adding to the brightness of the gas lighting, which was making the heat in the room and crush of bodies insufferable. Guy, in full evening dress, felt as if he was melting like a candle after the gallop he had just danced, but there was not a breath of fresh air coming in from the open windows. As the orchestra struck up for a polka, he thanked the stars for his foresight in keeping the second half of his dance card free, snatched a glass from a passing waiter, and stepped out onto the terrace. The champagne was warm. Grimacing, he set the glass down on the balustrade after one sip. On the far side of the room, pinned as ever to her husband's side, Lady Armstrong, ethereal, in a silvery blue confection, which billowed out over an extremely wide crinoline, looked to be enjoying the ball as little as he. Guy edged further out onto the terrace. 2 more days, and the seemingly endless house party would be over. 12 days ago, he had escaped by this very route, and every day since then, he'd had to fight the urge to run away. Harder still had been the battle he'd waged with himself every time he saw Esme. The desire to cross the invisible line separating them was so strong, sometimes he had to stride away in the opposite direction. He had stuck to his promise to stay away from her for the sake of her reputation and her work. But as to the reason he had come to the party in the first place, Max was doomed to disappointment. He had intended to wait until the bitter end of the house party to make his intentions or lack of them known, but looking around him, Guy changed his mind. Tomorrow, he would confront Lord Armstrong. But for now, there was only one person he wanted to talk to. Guy returned to the ballroom, pushing his way through the stragglers on the floor, for the polka had ended, and almost everyone was headed to the dining room, where a buffet supper was laid out. Dinner had been 9 ostentatious courses. How did the ladies laced and corseted and crinolined manage to eat anything at all without bursting their seams? In the main reception hall, he lost interest in this question, for the door to the temporary studio lay open, and inside he could see Esme. She had spent the evening taking photographs of couples from the guest list, carefully selected by Lord Armstrong. She wore her plain gray dress. Her rich chestnut hair was a tangle, and on her face was such a melancholy expression, his heart ached for her. He said her name. She turned her eyes, lighting up a smile forming on her generous mouth before she remembered herself. "Guy, you mustn't—" "I'm not going through with it," he said, pushing the door shut and crossing the room to take her hands in his. "I can't do it, Esme. I've decided." "But you must. You have been trying so very hard. I've been watching you. People listen to you. Lord Armstrong approves of you. And Mercy Lady Armstrong only this morning, Guy, she told me that she thought it would be a good match. Lord Armstrong's niece is not at all like him. A thoughtful young woman, apparently. I am delighted to hear that she's not a chip off the old block, and I wish her every happiness in whatever she does with her future." Guy interrupted her. "But I'm not going to meet her. Never mind marry her." Esme wanted to cheer. She bit her tongue, forced herself to tear her hands free to take a step away from his dangerously tempting presence. "What has made you change your mind? You've spent the last few days trying so hard to keep away from you." "Don't say that. We agreed that what we feel for each other can have no influence on your future." "What I feel for you is fundamental to my future, Esme." "No." She couldn't let him say more, though she longed to hear what he meant. "Your brother's plans. Guy remembered the money he needs to save the family estate. And you, what about your ambitions? The influence you could have has been vastly inflated and is vastly overrated. Oh, don't get me wrong. There's power here in abundance from both sides of the political divide. Not that it's much of a divide. They're 2 sides of the same coin. They're not interested in change. I have several times been called a radical." "Perhaps you've been too ambitious, aimed too high. I thought I was aiming as low as I was prepared to. I've impressed a few with my rhetoric, but that's all. I have nothing in common with these people. But in time, never mind them." He took her hands again in a firm clasp. "I've known from the moment Max proposed this match that I would have to make compromises, but I didn't know until I met you what I would be forced to sacrifice." No, you mustn't say that." "It's the truth, Esme. No matter how much you want to deny it, it's the truth. Meeting you changed everything for me. You made me look at the future my brother mapped out for me in such a different light. I would have the satisfaction of having done my duty. If I was blessed with children, I'd have the contentment of working for their future. I may have been able to further some of my most cherished causes, though never on my own terms. I'd have been content, and safe, and bored. Do you see?" She saw it all too clearly. Her own future was mapped out in the same terms. She would be content and safe and bored. You would have made your brother very happy. But not myself. I want so much more from my life, It's my life. You've made me see that so clearly. I want adventure and challenge and unpredictability. Don't you want those things too? She stared at him, helpless with longing. Yes, she wanted to say, despite this morning's conversation with Mercy, which had confirmed all she'd known from the first. Her life was her own, to make what she wanted of it, and she had worked too hard to ever change that. She would find a way to inject more passion into her work, and she had Guy to thank for making her determined to do so. Yet still she wanted to say yes. You can't deny it. We are kindred spirits, Esme. You know that, don't you? Kindred spirits who had no future together. She knew that, but at the moment, she didn't care. The only thing that mattered was to be in his arms, to surrender just this once to the passion which he roused in her, to have this, if nothing else, to remember for the rest of her life. Kiss me, Guy, she said, wrapping her arms tightly around him. They kissed. Slow, deep kisses to make up for all the kisses they had been missing in the days spent apart yearning for each other. They kissed, and they murmured each other's names, and then there were more kisses until the noises from the other side of the door, as the first guests started to depart, disturbed them. Guy cursed under his breath, casting an infuriated glance at the door. Shall I help you pack up? Esme was inclined to confine her precious camera to the devil at this moment. I've already processed the last of the exposures. I can collect my kit in the morning. The door to this room has a key. It will be safe enough here overnight. You want to go? Guy said, looking dismayed. Of course, it's late. You've been working all evening. You must be tired. She was alight with desire, and her body was protesting wildly at this interruption. But it was still possible, ought she to agree to go back to her cottage herself? Good grief. Could it be? That was what Guy wanted. Are you tired? He laughed. Sleep is the last thing on my mind, believe me. What is the first thing? She asked daringly. He ran his hand down her back to rest on her waist. His smile was every bit as sinful as the thoughts his touch aroused in her. You, of course, though I can't tell you what exactly I'm thinking. You would be shocked. She yearned to be shocked, which made her forget all about her doubts and her inhibitions. Nothing had prepared her for this, and she was glad of that. Tonight would be special in every way. I'm not in the least bit tired, Esme said, returning Guy's smile. Will you come back to the cottage with me? He inhaled sharply. Are you saying what I think you are saying? Are you sure? Esme nodded. I want you to sweep me away, completely, and I'm absolutely sure. Unless you... He pulled her tight up against him, kissing her fiercely. I have never in my life wanted anything more. The fates were smiling on them, Esme thought, as Guy opened the door of the studio she had set up for the ball, for the servants were outside busily organizing carriages, and the foyer was temporarily empty. She decided to take it for a sign that she was doing the right thing. Laughing, they ran until they reached the shadows of the hedge which bordered the carriageway, where they kissed again. The short walk back to her cottage was punctuated by kisses. By the time they entered the front door, kisses were not enough. The bedroom was at the back of the house, a tiny room with a single bed. They kissed in the doorway. Guy shrugged out of his dinner jacket and ripped off his collar and tie. There were more kisses. His waistcoat fell to the floor. Her crinoline was becoming a serious obstacle. We need to get rid of this thing, Guy said. But when Esme reached for the fastenings of her gown, he shook his head. Let me. I want to remember every second of this first time. It would be the only time. She should say so, but she didn't want to. Semantics, she told herself, knowing she was lying to herself. She ought to tell him, but then he kissed her on the mouth again slowly, his tongue licking along her bottom lip, and his hands began to work at the fastenings of her bodice, and he was murmuring her name, and she couldn't think of anything save this moment. He turned her around, kissing the nape of her neck, then her shoulders, as he eased the bodice of her gown down her arms. Feathery kisses such as she had never known, setting up little flickers of sensation everywhere he touched, and all of them connecting up to the heat tightening inside her. Her bodice fell to the floor. He unfastened the skirt of her dress and found the ties of her crinoline unfastening those too, allowing her to step out of both. More kisses, but when she grew hungry, he slowed her unfastening her corsets, then his hands cupping her breasts through her chemise, making her gasp. Her nipples were so hard. He circled them with his thumbs, then took off her chemise, and she stood almost naked before him. And he told her how beautiful she was, and she believed him, though no man, none had ever seen her thus or looked at her in this way. She hadn't ever made love, Esme realized now. She hadn't ever understood the true meaning of the phrase. She knew this was what she was doing, but she refused to contemplate what it meant. All she wanted now was to make love to Guy as he was making love to her. To touch him, pull his shirt off, run her hands over his warm skin, to press her mouth to the taut smoothness of his chest, to feel the tension in his buttocks as she touched him, and to feel the hard length of him pressed against her. There was a rhythm in their lovemaking that he set slow and sure, each touch arousing before they discarded another piece of clothing and another until they were naked in each other's arms, and they reached the point where there could be no more holding back. She shuddered with delight when he entered her clinging to him, holding him. His face, in the light of the one candle she had lit, was tense with the effort he had been making to sustain their pleasure. But as she shifted her hips again, urging him deeper inside her, he groaned and thrust. She was so ready for him that her climax came almost immediately, wave after wave of pleasure ripping through her, her cries making him thrust harder, faster, pulling himself free of her just before his own climax took him. And afterwards, he pulled her back into his arms again. She lay floating on a blissful cloud, her slick, damp skin sticking to his, their breathing slowing together, and finally understood what it was to be half of one whole. Then Guy spoke, and the words brought her crashing back to reality. Esme extricated herself from his embrace. "You don't love me. You can't love me." Her reaction was instinctive, her speech panicked, but as she grabbed her dressing gown, tying the sash tightly, part of her was protesting. Guy loved her. Guy loved her. "No?" she said again, sadly, regretfully. "No." Guy got up from the bed, taking her by the arms. "Listen to me. I know you think it's all too sudden. We've known each other less than 2 weeks. But in the time we've spent together, we've grown to understand one another. We know each other, Esme, in all the important ways," he persisted. "And I have known from the start that our meeting was momentous." Looking into his eyes, her heart lurched. She felt the same, but to admit that would be to admit the feelings she had been trying so desperately to repress. The feelings Mercy had seen writ large on her face for days. The feelings she could now see writ equally large on Guy's face. He loved her, and no, she couldn't say it, not even to herself. She had to put an end to this now, once and for all. She shouldn't have made love to him. She wished it hadn't been so perfect. She had known it would be, she had been certain it would be, which is why she shouldn't have made love to him. Panic gripped her. She wanted so desperately to tell him how she felt, and she wanted equally desperately to deny she felt it. "Remember, Esme," she told herself. "Remember all the reasons you have for walking away." For heaven's sake, she had recited them to Mercy only this morning. Why couldn't she recall them? She should have recalled them much earlier than this, but what she demanded instead was to be swept away. And Guy had done exactly what she'd asked him to do. Be careful what you wish for. She couldn't lie to him. She had no choice but to lie to him. She had to put an end to his hopes and her dreams right now. "I'm sorry," Esme said wretchedly. "I'm so sorry, Guy." His expression changed immediately at her ominous tone. "What do you mean? She could do this. For his sake and her own, she had to do this. I'm so sorry you have misjudged the depth of my feelings, and I'm sure," she continued, ignoring his anguished protest, "that when you return to London and more familiar surroundings, that you will realize you've mistaken the depth of your own, too." "I won't. I don't believe you have either." "You have to. It's true," she persisted grimly. "If it was, you would never have made love to me. I know you, Esme, and what's more, I know what it's like to make love to a woman who is only interested in my body, so don't even try to pretend that is the case. I love you. I know this is love, real love, lasting love." "No," she persisted, though it felt like a stab to the heart. "When you return to London, my feelings won't change," he said, pressing a kiss to her hand. "I know they won't, Esme. I can wait." "Wait for what?" She shook herself free again, utterly tormented, desperate only to be alone to surrender to the storm of tears that she was determined not to let him see. "We can't have any sort of future together, Guy. If you were imagining us married—" "What else you cannot have imagined I would ask you to be my mistress." "I haven't imagined anything between us, because there can't be anything between us. I have my own life to live, and I don't want or need to share it with anyone else." "You think I would try to dictate to you to interfere?" "It's my life, Guy, not yours, and I'm happy with the road I have taken. You are only just setting out at the start of your journey. You have no idea where it will take you." "You mean that you don't want me tagging along with you? Is that it?" "I have compromised too much already. I don't want to compromise anymore. I don't want to compromise you either. Do you see, Guy?" He began to pull his clothes on. "I am not an idiot. I know that there are any number of decisions to be made if we are to make a life together, and sacrifices too, but it would be worth it. We would be happy together, Esme. Together, we would be much, much happier than apart." She winced, wishing his words did not pierce her heart, wishing fervently that he was right. But he was wrong. She left the bedroom and waited for him to finish dressing, needing the minutes alone to steel herself. To fight the desire to surrender, to tell him that she would think about it, to snatch a few more hours, a few more days with him. Knowing that if she did, the days would turn into weeks and months, and ultimately end in disaster. "I am going to speak to Lord Armstrong first thing in the morning," Guy said, entering the room holding his coat over his arm. "I will naturally have to leave straight away." Naturally. Her heart was pounding. She wanted to throw herself into his arms. She forced herself to remain where she was. I wish you the very best of luck, whatever you do. I love you, Esme. I love you too. She pressed her lips together to prevent the words spilling out. She crossed the room and held the front door of the cottage open. Goodbye, Guy. London, November 1862. 6 months later. There was half an hour before her next appointment. Esme sat down at her desk and pulled the folder labeled Shoreditch towards her. The images were of cramped, dark, and gloomy streets, brick buildings in various states of crumbling disrepair, some with the windows boarded up, some with paper where the glass should have been. She had taken the photographs at various times in daylight at the end of September, but even if the sun had shone, it had not penetrated. Leafing carefully through the prints, she came to the more singular studies she had made. A water pump surrounded by a pool of stagnant water, a shop selling second-hand boots, a bone-weary washerwoman with sunken eyes, a brother and sister perched on a step, big-eyed and golden-haired children, their beauty a poignant contrast to their underfed bodies, ragged clothes, bare, filthy feet. They were good photographs, some of her best work. She had no idea if she had delivered what her client had requested. She had heard nothing since she had delivered the album, receiving her fee in return. Esme picked up the framed photograph of Guy she had taken in the cottage. She had heard nothing from him since the morning after the ball, after they made love, after he told her he loved her. "And I love you," she said to his image, setting the frame back down. When he left her cottage, she had fallen back into bed and lain dry-eyed and stony-faced for hours between the sheets that smelled of their lovemaking, telling herself that she had done the right thing, the only thing. She told herself so again, but the pain of missing him, the niggling feeling that she had made a huge mistake, persisted. Where was he? What was he doing? Had he forgotten her? Had he realized he didn't really love her? No one had ever said those words to her before. Not even her husband. She had never made love before, not real love. She had not missed the intimacy of her married life in her 4 years as a widow, but that one night with Guy had woken her body up, and it refused to go back to sleep, tormenting her with the memories of that night. She missed him more every day. She told herself that she had been perfectly happy before she met him, and every day she tried to be perfectly happy again. She had her work. She had her independence. She was lonely. The Shoreditch Commission had given her hope, but nothing more had come of it. The doorbell for the studio rang. Esme smoothed down her hair and got to her feet, shaking out her gown. It was raining again, she noted from the window on the landing. The person standing on her doorstep was hidden by a large black umbrella, but it was clearly a man and not the woman she was expecting. She opened the front door a mere crack, peering through the gap. "May I help you? I am hoping that we can help each other." "Guy?" Esme stared up at him, wondering for a moment if she was dreaming. His skin was paler. There were dark shadows under his eyes. But he was real. So very devastatingly, delightfully real. Her poor heart leapt, and a smile crept over her face. "Guy, may I come in?" "Of course." She opened the door wide and watched her heart thumping the words she had spoken so many times to his photographic image, struggling to be spoken to the man himself, and her body threatening to betray her by throwing itself into his arms. He, however, was making no attempt to touch her, folding up his umbrella and placing it in the hall stand, hanging up his hat and coat. "I'm expecting a client any moment now," Esme said. "A ruse, I'm afraid. I invented Miss Pickford." Guy retrieved a large package from the inside pocket of his greatcoat. "This is for you." Still dazed, she led the way into her studio, which had been set up to take the usual carte de visite portrait for a young debutante, the pillar ready for her to prop herself against. There were only 2 chairs set side by side out of view of the camera. She waved Guy to one, then stood helplessly clutching the package. "Do you want tea? I want you to take a look at that," he said. She sat down beside him and untied the string to reveal a large album. "Shoreditch, 1862. She read, and opening it up, found the first of her photographs. "How did you get these?" "I commissioned them. Another ruse, I'm afraid. I must admit, I had no idea what you'd capture, but these far exceed my expectations." "But why? What for? Why are you here, Guy?" He stared down at his hands, which she noticed now were so tightly clasped. They were white at the knuckles. When he spoke, there was a tremor in his voice. "I prepared a speech," he said with a shaky smile. "I've made enough speeches these last few months. I thought it would be easier that way, but I've never made a speech as important as this one." "Guy?" He got to his feet. "No, listen to me, Esme. That's all I ask, that you listen." Ushering her over to the chair, he gently sat her down. "You were right in many ways in what you said to me 6 months ago. I hadn't thought it through. I wanted to say, let the world go hang. Nothing matters as long as we're together. But you saw, as I did not, that it wasn't that simple. I knew what I didn't want, and that was the life my brother and Lord Armstrong had concocted for me, but I didn't have an alternative lined up." "And now you do?" "Yes and no. Max was furious with me at first, but I have his wife to thank for making him accept, if not understand, why I can't marry Lord Armstrong's niece, or anyone else, while I'm in love with someone else." "No, don't interrupt, Esme. It's a fact, and it won't change, though. I didn't mean to mention it so soon. I need to tell you what I've been doing first. You've no idea how much I've missed you." "I have," she said softly. "Truly." He smiled at that, took a step towards her, then halted. "Business first. The album. I've been writing. In fact, I've become a journalist, and I'm being paid for it too. I don't use my own name, but the one I've assumed is becoming widely read. In fact, I have a book coming out to accompany those photographs. If you're amenable, the intention is to sell the 2 together." "But who would buy such a thing?" "I wondered too, but I'm assured there's a market for it. Not only here, but in America. Would you believe? It was my idea, but the money is coming from... Oh, it doesn't matter right now. You see, it occurred to me after I left Killellan Manor, when I was feeling quite wretched, that instead of words, I might make more impact with images. To show people what was going on in the real world, rather than trying to force them to imagine, you know. And that's when I got the idea of the commission. This isn't the only thing I've done, though." Esme listened astounded as he described the pamphlets and articles he'd written, the second book he had drafted, smiling at his enthusiasm, lost in admiration at his stubborn determination to find a way to evoke change. "What do you think?" he asked, coming to sit beside her and taking her hands. "We will never be well off, and there will be times when we will have to scrape by. But we'll be together, Esme working together and traveling together. And what do you think? You sound like someone who wants to change the world. Guy laughed self-consciously. We won't do that, but we might open people's eyes, and if a very small number of them take action, we'll have achieved something, won't we? So you want me to be your business partner? My business partner, and my wife. He paled as he dropped to his knees, but his voice was certain, and the look in his eyes, she recognized it from her own mirror. Love. Esme's mouth went dry. Her heart began to race. I love you with all my heart, Esme. Will you take a chance on the rest of your life and spend it with me? Will you be my true and equal partner in everything? Will you marry me? He did not promise the road ahead would be easy, and that was what made up her mind. Yes, Esme said, knowing that she was taking a leap in the dark, but knowing he would be by her side when she took it. Knowing that she did not want to endure another month like these last 6. She dropped to her knees beside him. I love you, she said for the first time. I love you, she said as he pulled her into his arms. I love you so much. And I love you, my darling Esme, Guy said, then as their lips met, forever.